Good afternoon, everybody, and good afternoon to those on Zoom as well. Hopefully you can see, and if you can't hear me clearly, then please just let us know through the chat. So my name is Clinton Hines, and I'm the convener of the Landscape Architecture program. And this is my colleague, Christine Price, who is the other permanent full-time staff member in the program in landscape architecture here at UCT. We do have a whole range of part-timers who are practitioners from industry who work with us through the program through the 2 years. So they're not here because they're keeping their offices running. So, but they play a huge role in our program, and if you do enter the program, you'll meet them as well. So welcome to everybody. Let's just quickly just do a little bit of housekeeping. That's just a little bit stuck. Let me just check. Yeah, it's I find that even name. Oh, there we go. Okay, great. Thank you. So just quickly to make sure everybody's voice is heard and we make sure that we get to your questions, that if you can also for us, just post your name, those on Zoom, in the chat and where you are from and what you're studying. That's very important for us because we like to keep tabs on who's getting the message about landscape architecture, and also we just get to know you and what you're studying, and it helps us just to understand how to target our marketing. The session is also being recorded, and if you don't want your question recorded, then just please put it in the chat. So we are recording the session and we'll put it onto our website so you can access it there. And then keep your mics muted, of course, please. And also, please type your questions in the chat, because we have a very comprehensive process that we are keeping up to date with, dealing with everybody's questions. So, and we have a Q&A section on our website. So please add your questions into the chat. We'll try and deal with them at the end of today. And those that we don't get to, we can answer individually, because we will know who you are from the chat. You can also drop us your email, or we'll add that question if it's not already covered in our set of Q&A on the website. So you shouldn't be leaving here without actually having your questions answered. Okay, what are we going to cover? We're going to cover studying landscape architecture at UCT, what it is like studying landscape architecture, what are the courses typically that you do, and that's what knowledge areas and courses in brief is about. We'll look at the admission requirements as well, and pathways to graduation. So in other words, what happens in the postgraduate space in our school? How does that postgraduate space translate into, or to graduation, and then into the profession, into professional practice and registration ultimately as a professional landscape architect? That's very important to understand. If you're serious about it becoming a career, then it's important that you understand that, how that pathway can possibly work out. We'll focus a bit on the admission criteria and then submission of an application. This is our second information session. The first one is a bit more about the discipline and what it's like to be a landscape architect. This one is a little bit more about graduation and courses and application. Not entirely, but a little bit more. We get a lot of questions about where are graduates working, which is a very important question to answer, because we're a smaller discipline, smaller profession than something like architecture or engineering. And immediately people say, oh, well, there's obviously not enough work for you, so that's why you're a small profession. We can talk about that. We'll talk about that today. And very importantly is funding. I'm still waiting to see when I'll get into trouble about this, but there actually is quite a lot of money out there if you look and you scratch around and you know where to look and you diligently apply and meet the deadlines. There's actually quite a lot of money available. So, and most people who try get something out of the system. So, and Christine has done a lot of work on sourcing potential avenues for funding. So that'll be very useful for us to cover. Okay. So just quickly, briefly about myself. I studied at the University of Pretoria a long time ago, came down here 15 years, I think it is almost now. So I've been here 15 years in the process. So that's who I am. And this is quickly a few slides which show what it's like being in our school. So we are a design program. So our primary activity is design, built environment, spatial design. That's our primary activity. It's very important for people who are here, who are coming from a non-design background and might be coming through the bridging program. It's very important that that's the biggest change you would experience, especially if your undergrad was environmental science or anthropology or something like that, sociology, because there you have a more, I would call it a theoretical, with all due respect, base, where you go to class for 2 hours on a Monday, 2 hours on a Thursday, another few classes on a Friday, maybe something on a Wednesday, and they're short classes, and then you go to class and then you do a few assignments and you cram your books at the end of the semester. This is a very different program because the studio environment, which is not like this room, it's next door. Please go and have a look next door, is where you sit. That's our studio. You produce drawings. That's the main project, the one you spend the most time on, the main course. You produce drawings, come up with ideas, produce drawings, and propose landscape architectural designs. That's what you do here with us for 2 years, honors and 1 year masters. Of course, there are other courses involved which support that, but that's the main activity. This is how it ends at the end of the year. There's a panel of examiners there on the left-hand photograph. There's the student on the very left, about to start her presentation. Nicola, who did a presentation about what was the country where her site was again? Was it Malawi? Her project was in Malawi on the edge of the lake, and it was all about sustainable harvesting of the fish and the planting on the edge of the water, and how she can empower the community to maximize their productive systems as cultural systems as well. So that was her project, a very exciting project, and we were very happy as well. The chap in the blue shirt is a Harvard professor who came to visit us as well. We were excited to have him here too. This is Stefania. Her project was about children and accommodating children in the built environment. And at the bottom here is, I can't see who that is. Oh, that's Rod. He had a project up in the Boer Kaap. And these are examiners who are looking there particularly at the technical aspects of how you make these amazing things you design, because we need to make them, not only design them. They need to be made. That was examination. This is typically the studio environment. So there in the top left is Tana in blue. She's one of our part-timers from practice, one of the most, proudly we can say, most successful South African practitioners who works with us very diligently. She's now sitting in the studio. I went in there 5 minutes ago. It's past 1 o'clock. She's still sitting there with the student, helping them get through their project. So very diligent, and that's typically, we're working there, I think, with the urban, that's not the, are we working with the urban designers? Anyway, so we're all working together. That's what it looks like. Drawings, plans, models, cut something up, stick it together, turn it upside down, try something different. That's the world you're letting yourself into. Bottom right-hand corner, lots of little models as well. And then you make a model and you put it on the table and then you talk about it. This is what I did. This is what I didn't do. And okay, that looks slightly different. Why is that different? How can I improve mine? And they all lead to landscape architectural designs. Field work is very important. Immersing ourselves into the field is very important. We don't spend a lot of time on it because it's very time consuming and expensive, but we do go out. The top left garden, students walking, that was plants and design, I think. Plants and design outing. This is with, that's a freshwater ecologist. So you work with specialists from different support disciplines like freshwater ecology. That's a freshwater ecologist, the one standing in the water, the lady standing in the water. And here, I don't know where they were here. Okay, that is a very nice project that Tana, the landscape architect who I showed you earlier, did. These are images from the bridging course. So some of you have entered the bridging stream, and the bridging stream has additional course with 4 modules. These are some drawings from the January this year, 2024. So before you start in January, you do some additional work to prepare you if you're not a designer by undergrad or by previous degree. Then you come into this program, and it's an intense drawing, creative thinking course that you get drawn, that you need to work through. Okay, so those are examples of just what it's like being in our building. So you spend lots of hours in the room next door, lots of evenings with you, lots of community with your classmates, very important. So that's the kind of world that it is. These are the, I'll break maybe after this for some questions. Let me just go through the next few quickly, otherwise it will take too long. This is the picture of the degrees on offer in our school. So this is the School of Architecture, Planning and Geomatics. Geomatics is not on here because they're unfortunately quite separate in another building, but architecture and planning consist of these degrees. So so on the left, the pink ones are our degrees, which are postgraduate. So this level up is postgraduate. This is undergraduate. We only have one undergraduate degree, the Bachelor of Architecture Studies. And on the left is our honors, is the first level, the honors and the bridging honors, 2 degrees. The bridging honors is a stream of the honors, and that's NQF 8, and then NQF 9 is the Master of Landscape Architecture. Each 1 year, and of course, in the middle, they're separated. So you can take time out, you know, do whatever you want to do if you want to, and then you can come back and do the masters later. So you need to reapply into the masters. It's not automatic. And these are the other degrees in our school. We work immediately right to our master's degree is the urban designers. They have a 1-year master's. They also occupy the studio, and that's probably the program we work the closest with. We also work to some degree with the planning students. And then we don't have a lot of interaction with the architects, unfortunately, but there's also architecture and there's conservation in the built environment. So pathways, this is the pathways and admission. So to quickly illustrate this, coming straight into, so we're talking there about the red degree, the Bachelor of Landscape Architecture Honors. You can enter that. You are eligible for direct entry into that if you have an undergrad, an NQF 7, very important, you need an NQF 7, which is either architectural studies, landscape architecture, or the advanced diploma in landscape architecture from CPUT. So those are the routes in South Africa, at least, that you can get straight in. Of course, internationally, if you have an equivalent degree like that, qualified, if that's the right word, or set at NQF 7 by the qualifications authority, then we can also consider that as a direct entry. But those people can apply directly, and if they're selected, they move straight into the honors program. Then from the honors program, you can, and this is important to note, you don't have to go on to a Master of Landscape Architecture. Once you've finished your honors in landscape architecture, in our school alone, of course, you can go anywhere else you want to too. There's lots of options, but in our school alone, you can go into the Master of Landscape Architecture, you want to, or you can go to urban design. It's very important to note, if you see urban design doesn't have an honors degree, there's a gap there. It doesn't have one, it's just a one-year master's, but the landscape architecture honors is considered eligible entry for urban design. So we do have students who are using our honors in landscape architecture as their route into urban design, actually. And also some students who study landscape architecture realize during the honors, they would prefer to be urban designers. So then they just go on and do urban design anyway. Then there's another route, and I am correct that you can apply for the MPhil in conservation. So we haven't had, I don't think, anybody immediately going across, only later. That's a lot of later professionals going to the MPhil in conservation, but you can also go across that way. That means if you're really interested in heritage and conservation issues, which are major thing these days, and thankfully so, you can also enter the MPhil in conservation and built environment. Okay, so that's the direct route in and through. Then the bridging stream. So on the left, the red writing has changed to the bridging stream now. So that means if you have a related undergrad, so that means it's not design based, because design is the most important thing in terms of your skills of moving through. But we recognize that there are various bodies of knowledge that support landscape architecture and are used within landscape architecture, which are critical bodies of knowledge. That's why we allow people from environmental science, geography, art, or sociology, they're related, to enter into landscape architecture. But because if you're in that group, you don't have a design of the built environment background, like you would in architecture or landscape undergrad, you need to then do the bridging stream, which will tell you what that contains. But you are eligible to apply. You just go through the bridging stream. You get an extra course to do. And from there, your options further are exactly the same. Let me just finish. Okay, just quick information about the bridging program. So last year we had 3 courses. This coming year, we will more than likely have 4 that make up the bridging course. So the bridging course is 16 credits, but within it, there are different modules, you can call them. So there's the first one, the second one, the third one, computers, drawing, spatial, more architectural design in a way. And the fourth one is probably going, which we're adding for next year, is probably going to be technically based. So those are the modules that we do. And this is just a quick graphic. Some of the information here in the middle has changed, but you see the 2 bridging courses there are in January and February. There's 2 that will run in January and February, 2 modules. Then you enter with the mainstream honors course, and then you have another one in June, July vacation, always a week long. And then you complete with the rest of the students the honors program. And the fourth one we'll add will probably be woven through as an additional course that sort of weaves through. We're still working on that one, but it won't start in January or February. It'll start with probably with the classes when they start. That's the plan. I'll take some questions now after 2 more slides, then we can stop for some questions. So this is just to show you that dotted line in the middle is the honors degree. The blue bar on the left is the additional bridging course. So that becomes the bridging stream when you add that in. And there inside there, those little blocks where it says DFD, IDC, those are those 4 modules that I just showed you earlier, nested within there. And that's how the bridging stream works. So it's quite a simple thing. It's mainstream landscape architecture, but if you come from an honors design degree, you add 1 course with different modules starting in January, late January, mid to late January. And then my last slide, and then we'll take some questions. So that was this route. If you then have a completely unrelated undergrad, You, for instance, can go and do the advanced diploma in landscape architecture at CPUT if you can get in. They've got relatively tight entrance requirements. So if this is completely unrelated to that, they might not allow you in, but you have to talk to them about that. The other thing you can do is you can come through the Bachelor of City Planning, because they don't have design as a requirement. So you can go, you can do that honors, and with that you can apply to come to us. And there's possibly other ways to do it as well, but that's just to show you the further you drift from there, the more complicated it becomes to get in, but not impossible. Okay, have we got any questions? Can you see the chat there? Any from you guys? Yeah, yes, start over there.
Describe the courses that you do, and do you teach certain softwares, and what software do you learn? Or
Great.
Yeah.
For sure. The next slide deals with that. So we'll go to that. And your question?
So my question is just relating to like the studio environment or practical. I'm just interested in terms of like, so from what I understand, it's technical. So the ideas that you come up with and propose, they have to be feasible as well. It's not just like some random area that you select or like with a whole bunch of different designs. It has to also be feasible.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let me answer that as well. So starting with the first question. So to answer which courses there are, and then I'll quickly tell you where computer programs play a role. So on the left is listed the major knowledge areas. So that's a sort of summary. That's the quick take home. Design is the major course and the major skill we develop. We do some ecology as well, because it's important that we work with ecology in landscape design. It's really important. As we've said, you need to learn how to build the amazing things you design. So that's, you need to do construction as well, which is quite technical. Then in order to design the landscape effectively, you need lots of ideas about how to do that and how other people have done it, and how other people have done it in a way which we don't think was a good idea. It's good to learn about the good and the bad ideas. We learn about that in history and theory. And then, of course, plants is really critical because it's one of the major materials we work with. So that's probably the 5 knowledge areas, we can call it. I think I won't go through them in detail, but on the left, the green is the honors degree. And you will see in this little brochure that I've given you, you can see the titles there, but they roughly fall into those major knowledge areas. And then on the right is the master's degree. And there's less courses there, but they're a little bit bigger because they become like your dissertation project, your thesis project, so it carries bigger weight. Maybe just quickly to say, there's a studio at the top on the green in the left, which is your design practical studio. There's something about practice. How do you practice as a landscape architect in the marketplace? Landscape systems is the ecology side. Construction is, of course, construction. There's history. ACD, aspects of city design, is all about the design of cities, and we do that with urban designers. So that is an important support course. And then plants, of course, is the other important course. They actually follow those knowledge areas directly. And then at the bottom is the additional bridging course. So those are the courses, and where you can find a brief description of them is in the handbook, the university handbook. So those of you not sure what that is, if you outside of UCT, you go onto the website and you look under studying at UCT and you find your way through to the handbook. Have we got a link to the handbook on our site? We must maybe think about that, because it probably changes every year. Nevertheless, you can find the handbooks, they call them, and you look for EBE, which is environment, engineering and built environment, faculty, and inside engineering and built environment faculty handbook postgraduate, not undergraduate, postgraduate. You will find there these course codes and these names, and they will give you a brief description of each one of those there. Computer programs quickly. So from a design point of view, we probably use InDesign, SketchUp, Photoshop too, but to a lesser degree. Photoshop is useful. InDesign, SketchUp, these are sort of the minimum. Then there's GIS as well, which we use, which QGIS is absolutely adequate because especially because it's free. And then the last one is CAD, AutoCAD. That's sort of the minimum suite that you need to get to know and get on top of. And if you are coming, and this is a very important point, I won't get into too much detail, but seeing as you did ask, I think it's important. If you're coming into our degree from these disciplines, you would have learned most of those programs already, and we assume you have, because our degree has very little actual teaching of computer programs. We do have some, but it's very little. Because the main entry routes, you've covered the basics of CAD. So if you've come from architecture, landscape, or CPUT diploma, you already have used CAD. So we assume you do know AutoCAD, for instance. If you come from the related degrees, the bridging course has a 1-week intense workshop on those programs. But in 1 week, you just dip your foot in, just get operational. But you do need to work quite hard then as you enter the honors on those computer programs. And then related to undergrad, you'll probably end up coming through the bridging stream as well eventually. So I'm emphasizing that because if you are here and you've already decided you're going to study landscape architecture, even if you're coming through the bridging program, I would actually strongly advise you just start playing with QGIS, for instance. It's free. If you can get hold of some basic CAD license that's legitimate for like a month or two, free CAD, just start playing on them, because if you're not familiar with those programs, it does frustrate your studies. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. Great. And then, yes, practical or not. So, well, I think that's a chat, a question. Oh, is it yours? Just quickly an answer to that. When we enter design, we will bring you into the whole world of designing landscapes from very creative initial ideas all the way through to very practical ways of doing things, and all the implications of some ideas might be very difficult to achieve, but we want to hold on to the unusualness of them. We want to try and make it work. So there's definitely not a requirement that everything is always practical and achievable, but you study the context. And if this context is, for instance, a context where you're going to have very little access to skilled contractors in terms of complicated building techniques you want to use, then that's a bad decision in that context. But if you're trying to do something that can only be achieved through very complicated building techniques, then you need to make sure your location is where you have access to contractors who are able to do that. So we will help you navigate that whole realm. Okay, anything else before we carry on?
I want to ask about
Yes.
time frames. Like, how time intensive is the honors?
It's very. So yes, I think that your timetable, typical timetable, I think as a rough stab, it differs every year. Typical timetable is you're busy every morning, and then probably, is it accurate to say 1 or 2 afternoons you're busy as well? And then so you have 2 or 3 afternoons where you don't have class. So when I say busy, that means you have class. There could be a long practical 4-hour design studio like we showed you, but you are required to be here. So in terms of planning for your time allocation for honors, we consider it a full-time degree, and you actually need to be allocating your own time Monday to Friday, like a work week, 8 to 5, because it takes those open times for you to complete your assignments. So you will be in class for, say, four to five mornings a week, and then 1 to maybe 3 afternoons a week, and then the remaining time is open for you, but that time you would need to use to do your assignments. So it is difficult to maintain another job if you have one. What we do allow is, if some people are working and they have to maintain an income somehow, we do allow you to register what we call, I don't want to call it part-time, call it extended time, because we have no after-hours teaching. So you can do extended time. So that means you register, but you register for half your courses, the theory-based courses in the first year, and then the design courses in the second year. So that would take you 2 years to complete the honors, but you then in principle have half the week. And I'm saying half the week because it's not a neat half the week. So you won't have class Monday and Tuesday and then Thursday, Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday open. You might have some class Monday, some Thursday, some Friday afternoon, but then you essentially have half the week is completely open, much less time dedicated here. So that's how some people have managed it. So that's the only way to actually do it. I think if you, especially if you're coming through a non-design background, it's very difficult to work while you're studying. Yeah. The master's is very similar. It's not as time intensive. So we also, to get through your thesis project, etc., we assume you're working full week, but there some people, for instance, but you have less contact time. So you have more space in the timetable, but that's where you really need to be researching your project. But some people might then do a little bit of work there and then research their project in the evening and the weekends and hope the wheels don't come off. But so it is possible to do it with a master's, but we don't usually, but because it's less contact time, we don't usually encourage people to do it over 2 years. It just becomes a whole 4-year saga, the whole thing. So anyway, that's, yep. Any other questions?
I was actually interested to ask around that, the whole extended time, just what that involves. I think that's kind of answered.
Yeah, that's it. So when you apply, you don't do anything different in application. You come all the way through application. Then once you offered a place, then when you register through January, you register only for the courses that you will do in the first year.
But what you should do is let us know if you're intending to register part-time, so you can advise with the courses you register for. If you let us know.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, that's just, if you are registering for the right courses.
Yeah, that's very important. You can't actually pick and choose them because they don't make sense if you do that and not this one. So we've actually got a prescribed set of courses you should do in the first and second year.
So can I just add one more thing about studying over 2 years? Is you must just, in terms of funding, not all funders will support that. So just check the eligibility criteria of bursaries and scholarships if you are intending to do it over 2 years, because if you're needing funding, they might not offer funding for that model.
So, and then just understanding the bridging, if you're doing that, the bridging courses would be obviously in part of that as well. You're going to do, but that's very specifically if you're going the bridging side and you need those. So yeah,
it's true. We actually haven't had
That's
a bridge, but we've already.
that sounds complicated.
Well, this is the first year we've had the bridging stream run this way, but we haven't had a bridging student completed over 2 years, but it would be possible.
Yeah.
We'd work out a plan.
And I would imagine the bridging course would be the very first thing that goes on your registration.
Sure.
So, because you can't really carry on with anything else unless you've done it in principles. That would be first, and then we'd see what else we can fit in. Yes.
Just in case I can't ask this later, so aside from like practicing with the different programs and such, what other for those of us who are maybe coming into this without any
Yes,
design background,
yes.
such, what could we maybe do like during the holidays to sort of like prep ourselves in a
Yes.
sense?
I have definitely an answer for that. Go into the landscape, and not only, but a balance between designed landscapes and undesigned landscapes, but not necessarily into the wild. You can also do that, but go into places and just observe, look.
Or take a sketchbook with you.
Or and take a sketchbook would be excellent, and just observe, or at least a camera, but you need to cameras. Sketchbook is much better than a camera.
Sketchbook.
Yeah. Sketchbook. So that's really important. And slow down, sit in a place and just look at what's going on. Designed landscapes, not designed landscapes. And if you want to have some examples, you can email us later and we can give you some examples. But as a quick answer to that, the waterfront is great. Right from the Granger Bay side all the way to the CTICC, you'll get an immense spectrum of different kinds of things, but it's only one context. It's very good to get into other contexts out on the Cape Flats as well. But that's the answer. Yeah, I just read, interestingly, I've got a book that I'm really enjoying at the moment called 250 Things a Landscape Architect Should Know, in 2 paragraphs, and written by very prominent landscape architects. And one was look. So there we go. That's the one. Yes.
Are the bridging courses tied to that year? In other words, could I do bridging courses in my final year of my related undergrad, or is it?
That's an interesting question. Probably not, unless you do them as CPDs.
But then they will be more expensive.
Yeah.
To do it that way.
Yes, I didn't add that in actually. I forgot to mention these are offered as private CPD courses. So you can register, any member of the public can register for those. So if you're doing bridging, you'll be sitting in a class with, anybody. Flower arranger from Stellenbosch decided to take the course, or a doctor decided to do something else. So that's maybe one way you could do it, and then we'd have to find a way to make sure we give you the credit. And I don't know if that's possible. They get quite sticky about that, but maybe if think about it, I would suggest, maybe chat to us about that. We can see, because it's relatively new for us being integrated into the degree. So the kind of other perforations and opportunities we haven't really thought through carefully, but let us know and we can help you. Yeah.
And what is CPD?
Continued professional development, so short course. So universities of the world offer lots of short courses for anybody to. You don't have to be a student. You can just be a member of the public. These are offered as short courses. Yeah, I do think this is a quick answer to that, and I think rather waiting, to be honest, until you enter the bridging stream and take it with your peers, because the community of people that you're in with is so important to be tied in, because they're the ones who will let you cry on their shoulder at 2 a.m. when you're not getting it right and the deadline is coming. And that, I laugh, but that is such an important part of making it through design-based program. It's so important. So that's probably my advice there. I don't know. But we're quite creative with other things. Okay, let me keep going, otherwise I might run out of time, and we have another Q&A at the end as well. So if I haven't asked you a question, just hang on. Where do landscape architects work? This, I said, is a very important slide for us to moment for us to talk about. Yeah, as I've said, I've sketched why a lot of people ask the question, because a lot of people don't know what landscape architects do, really. And they think they might know, and they have the wrong idea about what landscape architects do. And a lot of people think, equate it directly with landscaping or something like that. And they assume, well, landscapers don't do very well. By the way, I know a couple of landscapers who are doing very well, just on the side. But nevertheless, they think, well, you're really going to get a job. And I understand that because it's not well known. So I'm starting to put more, and I want to take a little bit of time here, not too long. You can ask us questions later as well, but just to really help answer the question. How do we answer the question? Am I going to get a job? Well, I can tell you what you will do when you got a job, but whether you will get the job is very difficult to answer. The way we do it is simply to give you examples of our students and what they are doing. The first thing, so this is a set of our, not all of our graduates, this is just a collection of recent graduates. I'll quickly mention a few of them. But the first answer to that question, I think, is to say that I can honestly say, I only know of, and we don't know what all our graduates are doing. We don't follow them, fortunately and unfortunately. I only know of one who took a while to find a job, didn't find a job, and then found their way into another field, which I think was actually better suited to them anyway. Otherwise, all of the graduates, recent graduates, I don't know of any that are sitting without a job. Christine's agreeing with me there. And Christine's very connected to our recent grads. So everybody, I can say everybody, 99%, are finding a job in landscape architecture and related disciplines. I'll mention that as well. So that's the first answer. Okay. Maybe, okay. I don't know how to go through this. What can I say? This chap at the bottom of the hat is Jan, came from architecture. He's now working at Vida in Costa Rica. Doesn't that sound nice? Together with two other people who are, and you know them. There we go. So we got somebody who can, I'm not talking nonsense, that's true, eh? There's Stefania on the left, who's working with Tana at the moment, is the practitioner who's teaching in the studio now. This is Melia, who's working for a landscape architect here. We have international students. That's Ivo, who's back in the Netherlands, working for Lodewijk Baljon, and so is the lady on the left, who's a South African who went back with Ivo and started as a South African working in the Netherlands. So there's an answer to a question people ask. Can I work overseas with my degree? And the answer is a resounding yes. There's almost nothing holding you back from working overseas. Walking in and becoming immediately registered as a professional in that country is not possible. It's the same as an international graduate coming to South Africa. You can't become a registered professional landscape architect overnight. You still need to go through the licensing process. Thank heavens, because a South African knows nothing about environmental law in any other country. So thank heavens you need to do that. So yes, you can work, but you can't be professionally registered, but you can enter their registration processes with this degree. It differs slightly country to country, but let me go to that slide. Sorry, let me just quickly go backwards. There's all our international firms where we currently, or up until very recently, have had graduates from this program working. And just to make sure you don't think I'm talking nonsense, you can click, you can find these links on our website and go and look at the work they do. You'll see what these graduates, the kind of work they're doing. And these are all overseas firms from London, Rotterdam, Saudi Arabia, Costa Rica, Australia, and Middle East, Netherlands, all over the show. And yeah, here they are. Go and have a look. So and they're finding work. There's a lot of work currently in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. There's a lot of work there. Yeah, you can have a look. because there's just an amazing boom happening there. They're building all over the show. And we had, on that note, we had the one in the middle called Cracknell. There's a South African working there at the moment who graduated from Pretoria. So actually, that's not one we have as a local graduate, but that's a Pretoria graduate from landscape architecture working at Cracknell. Him and a colleague came down to South Africa, and they are looking for people to go and work for them. So am I going to find work? You've got some employers looking for people. That's another answer. It's an example. They were here, was it last week, Thursday, Christine, I think, in the room that way. We had a whole hour presentation from them on their office, what Cracknell does. They are a firm of 350 designers. A lot of them are landscape architects, and the firm only does landscape architecture, master planning, and urban design. 350 engineers, landscape architects, only doing landscape related kinds of projects, mostly in the Middle East, but also in London. I wrote there, sorry, I didn't write London, but they've got a London office as well. And they're here looking for graduates to come and work. And they told everybody about what it's like working there, and that they have programs where they draw you in, and then you go on to programs where you learn stuff while you're in employment. Great opportunity. You have to obviously want to work in the Middle East. Some people don't want to. That's fine. But amazing experience. And I wanted to say they're 350 people, and they are still looking to employ people. They must say something. Must say something. Yeah, I want to also highlight ACOM Australia. There's another field that you can work in, which is infrastructural environmental work. So in other words, we have graduates who actually don't find themselves comfortable or wanting to pursue design as their primary career focus, but they enjoy the environmental, ecological side of landscape architecture. And we've had a couple of graduates going down the hill, straight down the hill. They rolled out the studio and ended up in, what do they call, SRK Engineering, which is a very green, but they're an engineering firm. And listen to this, who employ landscape architects. So that's a side, a periphery where you can also find employment. And I know of, and ACOM is a firm like that, massive infrastructural project, a firm that employ, I know of a South African, a Cape Town graduate and a Pretoria graduate working for them. One, I think, has left to go to square one. I didn't put square one on here. But that's important to note, so that if you are interested in the environmental side, you can still find work on the sort of periphery kind of, that's where some people work. Because the whole, I don't like to use the word green, it's so superficial, but the whole, let's call it ecological infrastructure, penetrates all forms of infrastructural design, civil engineering, mining, and landscape architects are finding their way in there because it's such a critical thing. Anyway, let me go, that was backwards. We went overseas, now we're coming local. The same thing here, those are all local landscape architectural firms. Those are not the only ones, but those are the ones that have quite a good, what do you call it, digital presence. The ones at the bottom are new and they're starting out, so they're still building up their firms. But the top ones, you'll find very comprehensive information on the net about their firms, and we have graduates working at all of those firms. The middle is one, so that's local. So that's local, we've covered international. Then there's government departments, Cape Town Municipality and the Department of Public Works in Pretoria employ landscape, probably the most landscape architects in government departments. Cape Town currently has probably about 10, it's probably close to 10, 8 to 10 landscape architects, a lot of them graduates from this program, full-time, permanently employed in the city of Cape Town. And very nice jobs, very nice jobs. And the other municipalities are doing more of that as well, slowly but surely. But Cape Town is at the forefront of that. Department of Public Works has a good number of graduates as well in Pretoria working for them. And then the other thing that some graduates have done is with their degree from here, they've been able to apply to places like the Bartlett School of Planning, which is in London. Is it in London? I think it's in London.
UCL, yes.
And yes, and UCL. And that is considered to be a very prestigious design school in the world. UCL, if you had UCL Bartlett, then everybody, oh, really? That's interesting. People have gone there with this degree as their way in. And it's the other chap at the bottom is a graduate from a long time ago, Alexander, and he's gone into the environmental field ultimately. So he's now working in sustainability, living on the Gold Coast in Australia, having a lovely time. And Mapula has done at least one additional master's. She did one in France in urban planning, and this master's gives them eligibility to apply. So anyway, hopefully that's just examples. All I've given you is examples. So hopefully that covers your question. Anybody got any questions about where you work? After that, yes, or what you do.
Then talking about the masters in urban planning, can you apply to that with the honors in landscape architecture, or do you need a master's in landscape architecture to do an additional?
I wouldn't know. I would imagine an honors would be equivalent to what they're requiring to enter a master's. Because it just makes sense.
Yeah.
But you would have to check the Bartlett or whatever's entrance requirements. So you'd have to check their requirements.
But actually, I know one of our honors graduates has recently done a master's there. So actually,
okay. Is that something?
no, Cotlano.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you can, so say on UCT, you can do honors in landscape and then masters in urban design. Is that a global thing, or is it just at UCT?
Well, that's definitely UCT, but you'd also have to check them all, because every university's entrance requirement is slightly different. They all set their own entrance requirements, but the way I understand how porous things are and how multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary everybody's trying to be, I would be surprised if somebody wouldn't allow you into Masters of Urban Design with an honors in landscape art. I'd be surprised. That's probably a safe way to answer. Yes.
Mine is a quick one. Do we have access to this? There's a PowerPoint where you click on links.
Yes, so there at the top right, you'll see we already added them, or so they're already there. Yeah.
Yes.
Links on the way. Is that what you're asking?
So I'm asking about the entire presentation.
Oh, the whole thing.
Yes.
Yes, the Zoom recording will go onto the website.
Okay.
And already there's the information session we did from April or May is already on the website with a lot of similar content. So you can look on that one, and this one we'll add. Hey, we won't take away the other. So we'll add this in about a week. It'll be available.
And I'm assuming that's something like landscape at UCT.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you just go onto the UCT website, you probably can Google UCT landscape architecture, or you go onto the UCT website.
My question is just relating to whether the course offers like opportunities for students to maybe network or like come in contact with a lot of other firms, and maybe also like sort of make themselves known in some spaces as well.
I was not something clear, like what is the possibility for students to also join or do internships during their honors?
We don't have any formal arrangements of internships, etc. Because our program is so full, and other universities overseas have a completely different they start in, when do they start? September, October, and then they go through December. They have a very different time frame, so it's very difficult to set those things up. So we don't. have formal arrangements. But if somebody has an opportunity to go somewhere or do something, then we're always willing to talk about that. To give you credits you get from somewhere else and bring them over is very difficult to do as well. But it's very easy to pause your studies and go somewhere else. And then in terms of networking, etc., the most, for us, it happens in the run of the way the courses work. So what I thought about was, we have people like coming to present here, like the Harvard lecturer came to interact with our students, examine our students, and we ended up having 2 of our students attend one of his courses he was doing remotely because of that connection. So it's that sort of thing that happens. Your examiners here, your external examiners, are all practitioners from Cape Town. They don't always tell us this, but I found out later. They say, "Oh, I saw, Bob, when he did an exam, and I thought I'm going to phone Bob and offer him a job." So that kind of thing happens behind the scenes. Yeah.
But can I also add, there's the Institute of Landscape Architecture in South Africa.
Yes.
And yeah, you can join as a student and a graduate member, and they organize networking events and functions, and that's a good way of meeting people in the industry. So
There's also local studios, open studios.
open studios.
Yeah.
There's just, I think it's only Yes and Studio who are participating in this upcoming one.
I think Terra Plus.
Apparently they're
Yes.
not.
Oh, not in
No. Yeah, Amy from Yes and said they maybe weren't doing it this time around.
Okay, sorry, you guys got to run. Yeah, remember you can get the recording online, so you can get them other information. Okay, thanks, Anne. Let me go through to make sure we can get done soonish. So this, I won't spend too much time. It's just an example of a student project. Typical project is along, this one was actually in Nairobi, but along a river course, and the urban development pressing in on the environmental system and how you can accommodate that urban development and allow it to live and function, the economic functioning of it, but also interact with the river system and not damage the river system. This is a student's thesis project, which is just an art student, as you can see, very interesting visual techniques that he applied, but just an example of very infrastructural project which dealt with, originally started with ballast water in ships, which I didn't really know what that was all about, but now I've got a better idea, and how this ballast water was released into the harbor and it was causing trouble. Anyway, the whole project became an interconnected systems study of that landscape and ballast water, and it went on to everything else, and he eventually designed parts of the town and the landscape to work with the system and support it and so on. This was Ivo, we saw earlier, who's in the Netherlands. He actually took 2 plants, invasive plants that grow in the Overberg, and he studied the system that those plants are integrated into, and who makes money out of the wood, how the forests are getting impacted, how the biodiversity is impacted through this these plants, and designed an incredibly rich process and system for maximizing the advantages and effects across economic, social, cultural, ecological ways through this very systems related project. Okay, let's go quickly through our application. So I'm going to go through this quickly. Just stop me if you have a question about it. So here's the minimum requirements. So BA is from UCT. We've talked about that. If you don't have, then you'll enter the bridging stream. But the 3-year bachelor's NQF 7 is important. And if you're having a non-design degree, then you will apply for the bridging stream. So that's the minimum requirements. Those degree slides I had elaborate on that very carefully. On the left-hand side is once you've applied, then we look at your academic performance. So this is what we call selection criteria. We prefer a minimum of 65, but it's not an absolute minimum. So if your portfolio is looking great and certain of your courses which resonate with us have higher marks and some are perhaps low, but they don't really resonate with our content, then we're okay if you have a lower than 65 average, but it's a general benchmark for us. Portfolio and design and creative work, of course, is part of your portfolio. And then you write a motivation letter, and we also read that and see, just gauge a sense of how serious you are about becoming a landscape architect. So that's that. I think, yeah. We get a lot of questions about the portfolio, but there are guidelines on the applications process document. There's guidelines there. And afterwards, maybe we can have questions if anybody has questions. There's application information and process. So if you are applying, please read that document carefully, the one where the yellow arrow is. Okay. That's what you need to apply online. The main thing I want to tell you about the application process for those who are entering or have already entered. So first of all, please enter ASAP. We've already got quite a lot of applications in. We're already processing, and we have already made offers to people whose information is complete. So don't think that we wait until December and then only give a response to people. We give a response to you the moment your information and application is complete. We will give you a response. It could be within 2 weeks of completing your application. So, and we have already made offers to people. That's how the selection process ends. We make you an offer, and then you decide whether you want to take it up or not. So we've already done that. And as the year draws to a close, things get manic and the system gets clogged with a lot of applications. So please, the faster you get your application in, the better. It's so important that. And the second point is because the process of application is not, it's not a moment where you apply and it's finished. It's a process. So you go in, you unlock the process, you register a login, you then create a portfolio, you upload your results, then you realize, oh my goodness, I don't have, my letter of motivation is not finished. So then you save it. Then you write your letter of motivation for a few days, and then you upload it again. And so you continue. And then you get a notice back from the university that, oh, your transcript is not certified. Please go and certify it. Then you need to go and certify it. You need to re-upload. And only after all that is done do we get your application to look at. So please be diligent about watching your emails, entering your process regularly to check on the progress, and do it as soon as possible. And there's the deadlines. Okay. Funding. I wonder if, or let's do some more Q&As. Then we can go into fun. Any other questions? I don't see any new ones on the chat.
Yeah, I've responded to some in the chat.
Okay. Yes. Other questions?
I've gone through the slide quite comprehensively. I haven't seen any like the costs of, is that only once you've applied? Well, so I'm not too sure where.
In the application document, I do include a link to the fees handbook. So if you go there is a thing about fees because they're always updating it. I've just included a link.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. A lot of people ask about that, so there's a link in there. Okay, if there's no other questions, then I think we can finish off with some information from Christine about funding.
Yeah, can I just sit here?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to quickly get some water.
Okay, you get some water. I'll
be back in a sec.
So this is the message that we're getting the UCT postgraduate funding office is not to wait for an offer in order to apply for funding. You should just apply for funding anyway, because you'll see some of the deadlines are going to close, so don't wait for an offer. This is a screenshot from our application information document. So these are some of the upcoming deadlines and funding opportunities that landscape architecture students would qualify for. So there's quite a group of them that are due now at the end of September. And then there are a few more that are coming through in November. So all of these are in the application document, are clickable links. So you should be able to click on them and go straight to the funder website or their application document. And then please also visit the UCT postgraduate funding notice board, because they're constantly updating information. So do apply to more than one source for funding. UCT allows students to hold multiple grants up to a maximum value, and I think that's because of tax purposes. So after those amounts, you start having to pay tax. So I think UCT, to try and keep it simple, that's the size cap for funding. And then I've just put a quick summary of some do's and don'ts. So do attend some of the funding information sessions. UCT regularly posts some for their own funding as well as NRF funding opportunities. I think there were at least 3 or 4 UCT hosted NRF sessions. So please do go to those, because sometimes they can be quite complicated processes. Do check the eligibility criteria and application requirements, because they will sometimes, like the NRF, they have age restrictions, or there might be limits on how many hours of work you can do while you receive funding. And then don't forget to dot the I's and cross the T's. There'll be very specific things that people require from your application. And there are scary statistics about applications that are incomplete, that just don't make it through. So you don't want to be caught with an incomplete application because you've just missed something. And then please don't wait until the last minute to apply for funding. Try to get your applications in as soon as possible. This is the UCT postgraduate funding website. You can also go to the tiny URL to find more about PG funding. About that. Are there any specific funding questions? But I have put a whole section in the Q&A on the application information document on funding, because I see it's becoming one of the obstacles to coming to study. So financial.
I have one question. Are the bridging courses included in the tuition for the honors?
Yes.
And if you want to take them separate from the honors, you have to pay us a different fee.
Yes.
As a short course, then you will.
So the university runs their CPD program as a third stream income to outsiders. So if you are a UCT registered student, you get a slight discount on the fee. But they are targeting sort of generating income versus if you do the bridging course as part of the program, it's embedded within the curriculum. So there's a different pricing structure for
that. Okay.
Yeah.
You did mention the don't wait till you get an offer to apply.
That was slide number 1 of the
That's
funding.
the most important thing. Also, just again to encourage you to apply, because we're not involved in those application processes at all. But the one thing I have picked up is that sometimes they have a pot of money and they divide the pot up according to everybody who is eligible, whether there's 10 people or 100 people, they include everybody, but then obviously everybody gets a little bit less. So it's just an encouragement to just apply. I can tell you that almost the years where I've asked our student who's got some funding, and almost everybody puts up their hand. There's funding available, you just have to apply. So I can't promise that, obviously, but it's a case of applying. We've been surprised because that 190,000 cap we have had people who've shot over that because they've just applied all over the show and they've just got loads of money. And now it's triggering sort of problems. So it just shows money's available if you try. Okay, that's it, I think. So great. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much to those online. We'll maybe just leave it running for another minute or so, just in case you want to put another question in the chat to make sure we capture it. But otherwise, thank you very much for attending, and please feel free to email Christine or myself with any other questions you might have. And then this whole recording will go up on the website in a week or so. So thanks very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.